thank you all so much for coming to the session entitled, Are You Diversifying Your Talent? And honestly, for me, at a very personal level, it is an absolute honor to interview my boss. This is actually, I've known Kike for well over 4 years, and it's my first time actually having the pleasure of interviewing her in a fireside chat.
No pressure, no pressure.
No pressure at all. So Kike, thank you so much for taking time to have a chat with us. You have had an incredible story and been the inspiration behind founding BYP Network, and you clearly saw a great need as to why diversity is important. So maybe you can share a little bit about your brief story and history before we kind of dive into some insights that you found.
Yeah, sure. Hi, everyone. I feel like we made an assumption that everyone knows BYP Network. I'm sure that's not the case. So BYP Network is a platform that helps to advance the careers of Black professionals. So we have a community of over 150,000 members in over 20 chapters around the world. We now have an office in London and Atlanta as well. And we're all about helping companies to attract, retain, and engage Black talent. And it all started about 6 years ago now. So it's from my own experiences. I grew up in East London. Anyone from East London here? Oh, no. Okay, well, we are in Hertfordshire, so. Yeah, I grew up in East London, single-parent household, but I did very well academically and as an athlete as well. So I did javelin for Great Britain, got all A stars in my kind of state school. So I used to get a lot of opportunities, so like bursaries, scholarships, literally you name it, I'd get it. However, I'd be the only one that looked like me in the rooms that I was in. So let's think investment banking. I'll be the only Black person on the whole floor. All the other Black people would be cleaners and security guards. And it was like, okay, what's going on here? This is my first entrance into the world of work. I'm from a diverse area and upbringing. I've got loads of friends from different backgrounds, but I'm in the world of work now and I don't see anyone that looks like me. And on top of that, I had to be kind of an international athlete with kind of stellar grades to be in the room. And I spoke to the guy next to me, like, oh, how did you get in? And he's like, oh, my dad got me in. So that discrepancy was very strange for me. So at that point, I just felt like I didn't belong, essentially, in kind of in corporate world. And then I got a scholarship to the University of Florida in America to do my sport. And I thought, yes, this is great. Let me focus on sport as a Black person. We're athletes, we're musicians. Clearly, because I'm in the world of work, we're not there. So this must be the lane. So when I was out in America, I did not do well in my sport. So then I had a big identity crisis, like, okay, I'm clearly not an athlete. I'm not in the world of work. You know, what is my future, essentially? And that's kind of where the idea of BYP Network came from. It was 2016, Black Lives Matter was happening. I was thinking about my own experiences. And it just felt like we as Black professionals and students needed to find each other anywhere, whether it's in America, UK, Europe, anywhere. We need to find each other, know that we exist, know the job opportunities that are out there, have that role model visibility, have that representation, help each other via mentorship, sponsorship, whatever it is. But essentially, if we can find each other, then maybe we wouldn't feel so alone in the world of work. Maybe we'll get the tools we need to accelerate our careers and understand how to navigate it, rather than just dropping out of the world of work or corporate world entirely. And at the same time, I was like, okay, maybe also companies can now find the talent pool, because they keep saying they can't find it. It doesn't exist. There's no Black talent, where I felt like there was. And I know there is, because I've met a lot of Black talented people. So that's essentially how it got started. I was in my bedroom with my little dog on my laptop, and then here we are 6 years later.
Wow, incredible journey. Thank you so much for sharing that. I want to kind of touch on this first piece of the framework that we call kind of R, attract, retain, and engage. That attract piece is one of the key elements and almost like the first stage for businesses. Based on your experience of running BYP to date, interacting with some incredible companies, Morgan Stanley, Google, AWS, some of the biggest companies obviously in the world, what is the one piece that you are seeing they're doing right when it comes to attracting Black talent?
So some of them, not all. I think one of the pieces they're doing right is the employer branding. People need to know your company exists. If we don't know you guys even exist, how do we even apply for a role? So again, I sometimes think back to university, I only knew a few companies. So those were the companies I was applying to, whereas I didn't know there were 100,000 other businesses to apply to. So for me, it's that employer branding. Like, do we know who you are? What are you guys about? Is your DEI page up to scratch? Like, not just your DEI page, your whole website. Like, if I go on it, is there representation on your website? Can I see stories of people in your organization who are thriving, who have been promoted, who love the organization? And those are the things that allow people to even just apply for roles. And I think a lot of companies are doing that part right. I'm guessing you'll ask me what they're doing wrong, so I'll wait for that. But that employer branding piece is super important. You need to be visible. They need to know who you are. They need to know about your internal culture. And anything that you are doing internally, make sure you promote it externally as well.
Excellent. Which leads then quite nicely is to what are they not doing quite so well, where they can basically improve and do better?
So a lot of companies talk about kind of a pyramid shape, both not just within the organization. So pyramid is kind of a lot of black talent at the bottom in the junior roles, but they're not really going up to the top roles, not being promoted, not kind of getting stuck at middle management. But it's the same as well for applications. So they might get a lot in that first application bit, but then they're not progressing to the next rounds. So whether the next round is telephone interview or assessment center or that final panel, they don't seem to be getting through, as well as the psychometric tests as well. So for us, it's about telling these organizations, what are you doing to ensure that your kind of recruitment process is inclusive? What are you doing to ensure that these tests that you've put out isn't just going to fit one type of people, but it can help a range of people? And also at the same time, your panels, when you're doing that final round interview, who's on that panel? Is it diverse? Is it representative? And also I want to clarify that just because someone may look like you, so I'm a black professional, black woman, I may still not be representation because my background could still be completely different, right? There is class as well. And that's something, a lot of us have seen with the government, for example. So for us, it's just about really understanding that kind of diversity of thought, that just making sure that everyone is different on that process and just reviewing it as well. Are you getting the feedback from candidates that are dropping out of the pool?
Yeah, brilliant. Before we jump onto the retain piece, you touched on something actually quite interesting there, because in a way, the history of BYP Network and looking at bringing the community together in a way, because it's very much a community-first company, and that's one of the massive anchors behind it. But you've ultimately kind of taken the beauty of bringing the community together and now created a technology platform which allows us to basically kind of do that at scale with an incredible brand name called Javelin, which takes some of the history elements that behind the sport that you did. Tell us a little bit about Javelin and why you are very excited about it.
Yeah, firstly, it's been a 6-year journey. So when the idea was first, when I first came up with the idea, it was always supposed to be a tech platform, a SaaS solution. But I'm sure many people know building tech is not easy at all. So this is probably like our 3rd attempt at building a platform. But why we're so excited is that it's actually been 6 years worth of data, of gathering insight, of knowledge, of speaking to our partners, of speaking to our members, of hosting loads of events. Like we host weekly events with our partners, with our community in different cities around the world. We have so much content piece from black professionals internally in organizations and also from what organizations are doing in general. We host corporate brunches, so we bring our partners together so that they can learn from one another. We have leadership conferences and summits. So again, we're learning from leaders that look like us about how to kind of accelerate our careers. So we've got this wealth of knowledge that we've collected from over 6 years. Being able to now put it into a platform is what makes us so exciting. And the reason the name of Javelin, I didn't come up with it. It was someone in the company. So I know I did Javelin, but I'm not that genius.
It tied in very well.
It tied in very well. But if you think of a javelin, it's a spear. It's a warrior tool. You need strength. You need resilience. It can take you from point A to B. You have to be dynamic to throw it. Any two people throwing it don't go the same distance, same as people's career. It can go left and go right and go up, it can go down. You can even take a career break and come back and throw a javelin and still kind of go to close to the distance you were before. So the name just tied in so well with everything that we were doing at BYP Network. So we are here to advance the careers of black professionals. Doesn't matter what industry they're in, we're here to help them. We're here to be their personal coach. And by doing that, we have this AI SaaS platform that matches them directly to the job opportunities that they're looking for. It matches them to the events and to the content as well that they need to kind of grow, and also to the mentorship opportunities at our partner organizations. And something that also sets Javelin apart is the employer profiles. So we have DEI commentary on there, commentary from us at BYP Network in terms of how we've worked with the partner and what we've seen internally as well. And anything the partner is doing, so for example, companies are sponsoring Recfest today, this would also be on the platform so that people can know and connect with the companies. So we're all about that amplification of the black professionals, but also the partners and the opportunities that exist. And for me, that's what BYP Network is about. It's finding the black talent, getting them connected, giving them the resources and the tools that they need to grow and to accelerate their career, and at the same time helping organizations understand how to better welcome black professionals and help them accelerate their careers as well.
Yeah, love that. And I want to add to that, that's probably one of the reasons I was incredibly excited to join the company, right? I think if some of you have read McKinsey's latest report around diversity, equity, and inclusion, one of the things they talk about is being actually able to do it at scale. And so whilst it's great, we can do it at a community level and connect with each other, technology ultimately kind of allows you to do that at scale. So once you've attracted the talent and got them in, it's all about retaining them. And one of the things you spoke about, this pyramid structure for the framework that we talk about, is role model visibility. And I always say that's kind of like one of the most critical pieces, because you ultimately need to be able to see that if I come in as a junior manager in an organization, what are my probabilities to kind of get up to the top? And it's way easier if you can see someone that looks like you, similar to you in terms of ethnicity, gender orientation, LGBTQ, and looking at the top and saying, hey, actually, that's possible for me to get to there. Tell us a little bit about how we're kind of designing retention, and why retention as a tool is almost kind of like the critical piece, right? There's no point attracting the talent and then it's a revolving door because people don't see that role model visibility.
Yeah, I mean, from all the knowledge we've gained, from all the insights from our partners, from everything that we've learned, it's like a revolving door at a lot of organizations. I see people nodding their heads. So, you work really hard to attract them, to get them in the company, but then you can't seem to keep them. And that's many different reasons, right? Let's say you attract them, but they are the only one that looks like them in the company. That's going to be hard for them to stay, because they have to, whether it's, unconscious or just things that's going on, there are microaggressions that they have to deal with, kind of the feeling of imposter syndrome or being underestimated, being passed up for promotion, even little things like, oh, you look like Will Smith, it's like, I'm just me, like, I don't look like Will Smith. So it's things like that actually is why some of them might not stay, just because they just don't feel comfortable. And I always remember that some of my experience in the workplace, I just used to think, can't someone just come up to me and say, I see you, like, I can see that no one else here looks like you. Look, I grew up in East London too. Let's connect. Let me be your buddy, or let me kind of show you how to kind of navigate this world of work. That would have made a difference. They didn't have to look like me. I just needed that kind of that individual that understood me and that could kind of guide me. And most times in the world of work, there's politics, there's rules that you have to kind of go by. There's a game to play. You need to network very well. You need to know, okay, you did a great piece of work. How are you shouting about it? Otherwise, that's why you don't progress or you don't kind of move forward. But if they're not given these tips and tricks to basically accelerate their careers internally, they'll get frustrated. They'll leave, right? So who is that person? Are you that person who's looking out for people that you can see are kind of underrepresented or they're a minority in the company and maybe can help them? That makes a difference. And at BYP Network, what we do is a few things on that. So we have a Black Experience course, and that's for hiring managers or middle managers, anyone that basically has Black employees in their organization or want to hire them, to just understand a bit more about the Black experience. If they can kind of understand that information, they can be better allies and they can support them much more better. We also offer a mentorship program as well. So anyone can be involved in the mentorship program, and they essentially mentor someone, whether it's in the organization or externally, who wants to work for the company. And again, they get to learn from them. Like, some of my biggest growth has been from mentors, actually. People who don't look like me, who have opened doors for me, it's as little as I remember growing up again in East London and them taking me out to a nice restaurant for the first time. It makes a difference, because if you're not used to that kind of environment, it takes some time, and you want to be involved in conversations with other employees, but you can't if you don't know. So being able to be that ally internally to help that person and to also gain that knowledge is super important. And then also a part of retention is about that Black professional. So we offer our leadership summits and conferences, which is full of over 60 predominantly Black speakers who are leaders in their organization. So anywhere from just like managers to C-suite. And they're basically telling them how you accelerate your career, how you get an advocate. You need a sponsor in that a leader. You may not look like you, who's advocating for you in any room that they go to, or just making sure that your ERG networks are working. They're working for the organization. They're not just a nice to have. So we do all sorts of things like that, where we just bring them together to learn from one another, and then to remind them that they're not the only. They may be the only in their organization, but there are more out there, and they can also help refer people in. So that retention piece is both. It's not just on the black professionals, it's also on the potential allies or those that care internally, because why spend so much money trying to attract the black candidate, do all this kind of stuff, sponsor this, but then you're not retaining them. It's hard, you feel frustrated, you feel like, the work that you're doing is a leaky bucket situation, so you have to do both. And that's why it's super important just to get that knowledge, but then also invest in the talent as well.
Great, thank you for that. Before we jump on to the engagement piece, we talk a lot about intentionality, right? Being intentional, whether it's the sponsorships, allies, and even fellows when it comes to black ERGs. What does being intentional in the DEI space mean to you?
So for me, so funny, not just panels. It's not just talking, it is the doing part of it, right? It's the, everyone saw BLM, like what happened in 2020. Suddenly it was like black squares everywhere, as they mentioned. It was statements that were empty. It was kind of like, we're going to put billions of dollars to the black community, and now 3 years later, the DEI offices are being let go. We're seeing the funding being pulled. We're seeing just I think it was like 60% of black professionals say all the commitments made in their organization, just nothing came to fruition. So it's beyond that. It's beyond that virtual signaling and knowing that you're doing the work. Have you gathered the data? Do you know kind of, the representation in your organization? Have you had those Chatham House rules conversations? Just speaking to them about what's been going on. What are the sticky points? Where do you want to get to in this company? Do you see yourself here long term? How can we help you? It's making sure you do have those affinity groups, those black ERG groups, etc., so that they can kind of come together and know that it's not bad to have that group as well. Because what happens is a lot of black professionals don't actually want to join that group because they think that, the company will look at them differently by being part of that group. That needs to go as well. So that kind of culture that is, I know it's top down, but also middle management is actually the key. Like middle managers, they're the ones that either kind of block people's promotions, they're the ones hiring, they're the ones that will, I don't want to say frustrate, but they're the ones that have to be turned in order to make sure your organization is the culture that you want it to be.
Brilliant. Which leads quite nicely to engagement, right? Almost like the last pillar in that framework of attract, retain, and engage. So let's just do a quick survey here. If you're in a 100+ person organization, which I'm sure many of you are, do you have a ERG, just a general ERG focused on diversity, equity, and inclusion? Show of hands. Fantastic. Keep your hands up if that's okay. If you have a dedicated black ERG, please keep your hands up. A dedicated black ERG. Fantastic. That's excellent. So you've seen the room drop a little bit, which is good. When you talk about engagement, thank you, you can put your hands down. When we talk about engagement and that piece of saying people have to be comfortable creating the safe spaces for people to have the conversation, why is fellowship and black ERGs almost critical in the entire piece when it comes to engagement?
Yeah, so some of you might think, why is it just black? About, it's everyone, people of color. Of course, it is people of color. The reason we focus on black, if you look like Black Lives Matter in 2020, 2016, I'm sure all of you know in your organization, it's predominantly black people that are not there or at the bottom rungs of your organization. Sadly, the stats back it up, that in BAME, not that we like that term, black is severely underrepresented. And so with that, they have different needs as well. That's the key. So it's like, what can be done in those black ERGs that's specific to maybe black people and how they grew up and in the knowledge that they've gained. I was having this really great conversation with these two other women about kind of us growing up in London, some North London, East London, that our families, like someone having to fit 7 people in a car just to kind of get somewhere. Don't tell anyone, put your head down. Parents saying you have to be doctors or lawyers, but then kind of not letting them go out as well. So that kind of like that home building, there's things that they can kind of talk about that is relatable. And with a dedicated black ERG, it's for them to have those discussions and then to come up with those ideas of maybe going back into their schools, right? Because something we don't talk about enough as well is that next generation. The next generation are being raised on social media. They're being raised on, soft life and let me not talk clubs and whatnot, just not positive things, sadly. And people like yourselves are not visible. We're in the workplace. We're not really visible online. We're not celebrities per se, so they can't see that representation. And that's what ERGs can do. They can be the ones that goes to these schools. They can be the ones that kind of do the drives. They're the advocates for your organization. If your ERG is referring people in, then you know you've got a great ERG, a very active one that believe in the organization. And that's where you need to really get to, utilizing your ERGs to basically work for the organization in a positive way, and because that they want to. And something that we do with our conferences, many ERGs, they come to our conferences. They come along sponsored by their organization to, again, learn from other Black networks, learn from other Black leaders and professionals, and just also learn about how to take it back to their organization. And that's really, really key. Some people just need support. They just need to know that they can do it and they won't be vilified for it. And I think having a culture where you allow that and facilitate that is key. And a lot of these ERGs need to be sponsored by someone senior that don't necessarily look like them, but someone at the top that's saying, yeah, I'm the advocate for that ERG. Anything they need, I approve it. That gives it more backing and more weight, and that allows them to do more. And most importantly, pay your ERG leads, or at least put it in their performance reviews as well. Not, oh, this is your day job, but you're focused on this, it's not good enough. Put it as part of their role so that they can be empowered to do it, and give them budget as well.
Which leads quite nicely to the last bit. We've got about 5 minutes left when we're talking about, earlier on, they mentioned it on stage. Sadly, there's a lot of diversity, equity, inclusion budgets which are being cut. There are a lot of the roles that are going. Why should companies stop doing that? Like, why is it critical for them to actually turn around and say, hey, actually, this is an important part of our business and this actually contributes to our bottom line?
Yeah, because it's going back again, right? Remember 2008 recession, financial crisis. Okay, everything got wiped out that was done before. Then again, COVID, things got wiped out, then got changed again with Black Lives Matter. Now we're here again, it's getting wiped out. Basically, we're just not moving forward. You know, is it going to be, okay, something happens again in a few years' time and then we're going to get new statements and new black squares and new promises again, only for it to be wiped out? I think it's frustrating, and people will see through it as well. Like, there's only so many times you can kind of start something and then rub it out and then start something again. So for organization, we already know, again, from the stats, from the research that is out there, diversity of thought helps the organization. It does help the bottom line. And at the same time, you are losing business as well by not being diverse and representative. We've seen examples of that. We've seen marketing campaigns fall flat because they didn't have a diverse team. We've seen celebrities walk away from working with organizations because the people that came to present weren't diverse. So it does affect your bottom line. I think one of our best examples with a corporate partner that we work with, they said they were hiring more black women, and the black women opened up the hair care market that they hadn't known about and led to like a multi-million-pound revenue stream that they'd never had in their organization before. Again, I'm not saying hire us so that you can make more money per se, but actually you don't know what you don't know by not having that diverse thought and those people in the room that can also challenge ideas. You do need critical friends as well so that you're making the right decision. So to erase all the work that DEI professionals have done, HR leaders, talent acquisition, is exasperating, and then you'll lose them too. You won't just lose, the black professionals, the diverse professionals, you'll lose people doing the work as well because they're tired, they're burnt out. How much can they really do with big goals, small budgets, no one really caring? It's frustrating.
Yeah, I one of the quotes, I love it, it's focused more around investment, but says, wealth is built through concentration, it's held on through diversification. And the truth is when you look at diversity, the same kind of principles apply, right? You would never just invest in one stock portfolio, one stock, and kind of keep it that and be like, I'm resting everything on that. Ultimately, you want a diverse portfolio included in that to kind of bring different perspective and ultimately drive performances, as in that example as well. Last question for me, and then we'll basically kind of wrap up because we're pretty much right on time, is what are you most excited about, right? The next 2-3 years, what are you most excited about BYP and Jack?
I'm just excited about the company in general. And, we've come so far. The fact that, like I said, we have offices now in Atlanta and in London as well. We recently had our leadership summit in New York in Times Square, backed by Cisco and Capco. We've got 20 chapters with the aim of 40 chapters by the end of the year. So these are in places like Dubai, to Leeds, to Melbourne. There's so many exciting things that we're doing, even with Javelin. Like I said, the fact that we're able to accelerate the careers of Black professionals on scale, that's the key. It's so exciting, and it always goes back to when I had the idea of like, okay, it's moving, like we're here, like we are solving problems, we are part of the solution, and that's all I wanted to be, was part of the solution. Like I always call myself a proactivist, like I'm an activist, but someone who's very proactive with it. Like I want to create solutions, I want to be part of helping, and I want others who want to help to give them a way to help as well. And I think that's what BYP Network does, and that's what makes it so exciting, because I always say we're only at the beginning. We're only getting started, and there's so much to do. And even when you see negative news or frustrating things like affirmative action in America, for example, you just feel like, okay, we keep going, and that's all we can really do, is keep going, keep trying. And as long as all of us are doing our part, that's when we'll continue to see change, and that's the key. As long as let's all do our part, whether it's mentoring one person, showing up, whatever it is, then we'll see change. So that's what excites me about BYP Network.
I love that. And we're here all day. Come and see us over at Island 5, right by the booth. We've got fantastic little tote bags they can use to add the rest of the swag in there. You can't miss me. I'll be walking around with my bright yellow hat. You can't miss our gazebo. It's bright yellow as well, on brand, including the shoes. Kike will also be doing a little bit of a meet and greet in the EY tent at 12:30. So feel free to kind of come along and have a chat with her. We're here, we're present. We know that it's important for us to be here. I always say to people, you have to be in the room, and you have to want to engage with people as well. So thank you all so much. Have a fantastic Recfest. Watch out for the bugs.